Hello everyone and welcome back to a short reviews video for March 2021. It's time to talk about some albums and EPs that I didn't really have that many things to say about them, mainly because I didn't find them that interesting or with that much content to them, so all of those are being put together in this almost monthly section. As you already know, it's about some albums that go from 4 minus to 6 plus, and yeah, with that being said, let's just jump straight into the video. You know, I was anticipating the new release from Qual because I found that the previous album that he did was a pretty intriguing work and I certainly wanted much more of that style. And as far as the Embrace in Lux also goes into those more industrial techno approaches and it's a more aggressive album, I didn't find this to have the intensity or some of the great characteristics that you could find in the previous album. This one felt a bit flat in comparison without that many intriguing ideas to it, and so it was an album that I didn't really see myself returning to it, really finding it all that interesting. It's still though a pretty decent album. I was actually kinda intrigued with his brand new release of Vatican Shadow because it doesn't really go into some of the more standard approaches of industrial techno that we see in the majority of his works. Instead, this one goes a bit closer into some dark ambient directions. It focuses more on dark atmospheres, and so for me, it makes it a somewhat intriguing project, but still not something really that spectacular. Still, considering that I found a couple of releases from Vatican Shadow to be somewhat more underwhelming, I think that this is an okay project, but certainly not something that I see myself coming that much back into. This is a brand new self-titled EP by Ryoji Keda that only contains two really lengthy tracks and it goes for about 32 minutes, so it's a bit lengthy for an EP. Now, this is not a release that in my opinion truly showcases the talents of Ryoji Keda. This one goes into the more minimal ambient approaches of Ryoji Keda, which is something that we've definitely seen with other releases before, and in my opinion it doesn't always make for some of his greatest material. So if you are unaware of the sound of Ryoji Keda, this in my opinion is not a good starting point. It doesn't really showcase what he's capable of, and in my opinion in many occasions this EP was extremely forgettable. I was highly anticipating this brand new release of Serge Tankian, and honestly, I think that in some occasions I did get some of the vibes that I would get with like System of a Down material. However, in my opinion, if this was about to be like new System of a Down material, then it would certainly make for some of the most underwhelming material they have done, because I honestly couldn't manage to find some of the great characteristics that made the sound of System of a Down that spectacular and that special. There was potential, but unfortunately, this release is a bit all over the place. This is another release of Show Me the Body that I cannot really get that much into. This is an extremely short EP with only 3 tracks and it doesn't really offer that much. Fans are definitely going to appreciate, like there are certainly some pretty intriguing moments into this whole project. However, for me it was another release that I wasn't really feeling as much. I think it had potential for something a bit better. I was honestly just thinking that there is no way for the next Justin Bieber album to be worse than Changes, and thankfully this is not the case whatsoever. This is miles better than Changes. But does this really say all that much? Well, actually it does, because this album honestly, I don't think it's that bad. For the most part it's a pretty average pop and R&B album, but at least it is average. Like nothing to it feels like extremely bland or borderline unlistenable. I also like the touches on the second half where we get into some more 80s synthwave material. I think that some of the results are certainly pretty decent. There is also a Martin Luther King interlude. I don't really know what's with that, but whatever. And yeah, honestly, somewhat pleasantly surprised with this release in some respects. Like, it's certainly not something to write home about, but honestly, this might be my favorite Justin Bieber release. I honestly thought that some of the tracks over here were quite decent. A good way to describe NF is that he's basically making rap music for people who do not like rap music, or basically those people that say that the rap game is degrading nowadays and that there are not good rappers. But here comes NF with a Christian hip hop tag that doesn't swear on his lyrics and he doesn't talk about sex and drugs and money all the time. He's this kind of rapper. Now, to give credit where credit's due, I think that NF is not actually one of the corniest ones in this type of rap game. Sure, most of the bars can be quite cringy, but his flow is kinda nice. He can definitely rap and pull off some interesting parts, and the production in many of his songs is quite intriguing. It has a really cinematic orchestral vibe combined with hip hop beats. So yeah, there are certainly some intriguing characteristics, but this is not for me, that's for sure. Niels Fram dropped an archival that was recorded back in 2009 and was meant to be his debut on Erased Tapes Records, and unfortunately I kinda see why it was not released at first and it took such a long time to be released to the public, because this is certainly not close to some of the greatest piano works Niels Fram has done. I mean, there are still some intriguing moments. I sort of like the intensity of the track Hammers, but for the most part it is a slightly underwhelming piano work from Niels Fram that doesn't really manage to be all that compelling or captivating in my opinion. I was extremely disappointed with the new Ocean Wisdom album. I loved so much some of his first works, like I really loved his flow, his whole attitude, the way he was rapping. Some of the beats, they had such an amazing old school feel to them. So I don't really know what happened here. Anything that was appealing about Ocean Wisdom is almost completely gone over here. Like you still get some fast and incredible flows, but some of the emotions and the attitude really misses the mark over here. He mostly goes into some underwhelming singing parts constantly, like there is so much awkward singing in so many of his tracks, and almost all of the hooks sound god awful, and most of the instrumentals, they're pretty lifeless. It's not close to the worst albums I've heard all year, like the album still has its moments, but it's certainly the most disappointing album of Ocean Wisdom, for me at least. And that's it, that's all I have for the short reviews of March 2021. What's your opinion in any of those albums? Like them, dislike them, why, and what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.